So I ended the last video, and it was apologize. I was walking around doing some things, but let me sit down and let's continue this series. And I ended with Jennifer Lopez in relation to pigment genes. Also, for that whole pigment gene test, I didn't put a link to that in that video. I may put one, but like Egypt Search is such a broken website, and to my knowledge, that's where it was posted. So I'll put it. Hey, you can go there at your own risk. I think it's okay, especially if you're not signing in. But I think it's all right. But that website is so broken. But what about Jennifer Lopez? We're going to talk about Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, dumbass. Yeah, we're gonna just continue with what content creators aren't telling you, because there's a simple reason why it was going to be difficult to get sex trafficking and racketeering past 12 people. Even if you led with some stuff like the assault and the video of the assault, you can bias the jury in that way since he's not being tried for that, and you can bank on that. But still, 12 people might say, okay, by the letter of the law, I'm not supposed to pay attention to this. I'm supposed to pay attention to this. And that's where, if you go to what determines guilt in sex trafficking, now racketeering, I think it's obvious. A lot of people are talking about why Diddy got off with racketeering, but in a sense, they're somewhat related. But the main reason is you can't be a one-man gang. So the things he was doing that were illegal would have to be a front. Well, check that. Bad Boy would have to be a front. His business deals, I think, with champagne or whatever, that would have to be a front for a larger criminal organization. And that's going to be difficult to do when you don't have any co-conspirators. And all of your co-conspirators, they're all getting deals and immunity deals to testify against Combs. And if we're talking about biasing the jury, it's like all of these witnesses would ordinarily be in trouble, and they would be, let's just say, Cassie and Jane Doe. Isn't that like, how come everybody says who Jane really is, and we don't get her name? Like, I've never seen that, but maybe I'm mistaken. But that just seems kind of weird. Like, but anywho, they they would be Johns. Like, they would be guilty of the Mann Act too. So that kind of bleeds into what I'm getting to with the sex trafficking is you're telling the jury, don't mind the fact that they would be guilty, but they have to testify against this person. So now it's like, oh, are they gonna lie? So what were they saying back in time? But this is where it gets different. They could believe, Jane and Cassie, that even though Cassie said she's always down for a freak off and she likes to have them, just not as often, and she wants to know when the next one is, and Jane wasn't really that gung ho, no pun, but Jane said she liked to do them on occasions, and especially the first one, she thought it would be a one-off. I think there was more ammo with Jane, even though she never really came out hard and said I was forced to do it in any way. Like, she never really said that. So the jury could believe that they changed their mind and that they were really threatened or whatever. The jury could believe that. There might be a hard time believing it if they're watching the videos. But like the sex videos that only the jury can see, right? But here's the big but. They're them as witnesses to Sean, to Diddy, and to the sex workers, because I mean, these were mostly like male sex workers. There were some females with the bigger parties, but Diddy was into um, hiring like male hoes for his girlfriends and to watch. And they were calling this sex trafficking for his girlfriends. Even though, like I said, they're presenting to him, at least in the evidence that was shown, and we don't know what else they could say that wasn't recorded. But if you're getting that much positive feedback, it's going to have a hard time getting through what's called mens rea. And it's a legal definition of a criminal mind. It's not just that Diddy sex trafficked. He could have sex trafficked. Maybe they felt threatened to the point where they could not resist, right? And then he sex trafficking his girlfriends and the hookers, whatever, male hookers, the gigolos. But you can't argue that. I mean, you can make this argument. Maybe it gets past a juror or five, but to get past 12, that Diddy's getting this positive reinforcement. I can't wait. When's the next one? I'm always down for a freak off. If he's getting this, if it's hard to then say he had a criminal mind to make them do it against their wishes. It's as simple as that. And that doesn't pass mens rea. And if I'm his defense, I'm making that argument from the beginning to the end that he is not in a criminal mindset in terms of I'm running a sex trafficking ring, even though a lot of this is one-on-one. This is one-on-one, and he's paying, in a sense, both people. But he's procuring male prostitutes. And ultimately, Diddy goes down as the only black man I've ever heard of to get convicted of the Mann Act with other men. So I'm just saying, because a lot of people make this about not believing women, when in fact, Diddy's best defense, the only clear letter of the law defense, that if you have one jury that just says, you know what, bias aside, letter of the law, there's no criminal mindset to force people to do something when they're giving you this type of feedback. Even if you're their abuser, even if they're right, even if all of this was fake and she wasn't always down for a freak off. And I don't even want to give the examples with Jane, because she was still living in the dude's house, waiting for him to come home. They were still together. Like, they were still getting down while they were investigating them. So that sort of feedback is, all of this is going down, you're still with me. And she mentioned why she was with him, why she loved him, and why she chose to do this. If she's giving the jury on the stand this type of feedback, you have a hard time saying, well, that isn't what was going down with her man. And unless they're getting a stream of clear, I don't want to do this, you're forcing me to do this, where's the criminal mindset? And that's why Diddy's avoiding the major time for now. I mean, he's probably going to get sued for a whole bunch of other shit. And you know what? I agree. I don't think he was guilty of those two charges. I don't know why they dropped some of the other stuff, like burning up the car. Oh, the reason why they dropped the whole burning up the car is because Diddy got somebody to do it. It would have been incriminating. You go with this, but again, you have to, since someone else's fingerprints were there, it doesn't go back to him, even though we know it does because he threatened it and it happened. You're protecting the people who would ordinarily be the co-conspirators. And if you're doing that, you got to drop those charges, and you're left with, like I said, racketeering, which the problem there is with racketeering is you have no co-conspirators, and you're left with sex trafficking, when this is not your standard sex trafficking a model where, because the standard sex trafficking model, these aren't your girlfriends, these are your slaves. And either you have some real damaging stuff to force them, or you're literally tying them up. You got to have some mean threats, or you're tying them up. Like, there's less psychological and more force, more tangible threats. And that's just where it is. And I'm okay with this. There's other, like, people who just want to see straight up justice. The dude's already been in jail for like 8 months, 9 months. He's probably going to get some more time for the Mann Act thing, because if you're the judge, you're going to get criticized if you're like, okay, go straight home. Otherwise, he would have sent him home. So just off that, whether or not I think it's reasonable, and I could say, well, he's not, it's just the Mann Act, but how many instances of the Mann Act do you have? Like, he was habitually doing this for a decade. Or you say, like, what is he? He's not a threat. And that's the thing. They denied bail because of domestic violence. No, it's because of how domestic violence looks in the media. Ordinarily, if it's your ex-girlfriend and she's already married, moved on, y'all live in different areas, they just let the person go with the protection order. Like, you're eventually going to have to do that anyway. I don't know why he thinks I mean, Diddy might hate the fact that he was put through this. He might hate Cassie. He might want to kill Cassie. But I think he wants his freedom more. So I think Cassie's going to be cool. She's going to be protected. Especially being in New York City jail, nasty business. I'd rather do prison in the countryside or something than a New York City jail. That's just funky. I think that's where he's at. I don't know. I think they're moving him around, but I think the dude's been punished and he's not done facing charges. So for people who just want straight up justice, realistically, this is what you're supposed to get. Otherwise, you're setting a terrible precedent where you do anything and you're not doing it with a criminal mind, but you can get people to take deals with prosecution and infer a crime of a criminal mindset that you have all this evidence that would have been totally illogical for you to have. You wouldn't have that mindset. So I don't know if many of these, what do you call them, content creators are saying this. They're not saying it. So I'm saying it.